Hello and welcome. Tonight we have 6 poets from our May 2024 issue number 33. They will read poems published in our journal and elsewhere, as well as poems still looking for a home. I thank all of our participants and attendees and hope our viewers will enjoy this sample of poetry from our latest issue.
This is called Dream of the Nephew. I dream I enter through a copper door into a tunnel built beneath the school I went to in the spring before the war broke out and father went away. A tool is waiting for me 88 feet down the shaft, and I caress its length of zinc as Auntie Rita in her ragged gown tells me to turn on Wimbledon. I think it is Ash Wednesday because her forehead has what looks to me like streaks of graphite running to her scissored eyebrows. Aunt Red, I call her, though by then her hair is white. The wireless doesn't work, I try to say, but Auntie turns away from me to pray. And finally, Dream of the Mourner. I dream my sister rides across the plains as springtime blossoms like a bloody shaving accident. Her purple prom gown stains the night. Her date has come and gone. Would he have stayed if I had been a better girl? She gives a little grin and shakes her head and spurs her gelding to the spinning world above. Of all the things I could have said to her, the one that lingers on my tongue's a question that I never asked out loud before. I think I must have been afraid to know the answer. Alex, why so young? Was it a game to you? The box, the shroud, the players whose voices trembled as we prayed?
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Do you have a manuscript of these yet?
No, I'm just creating the manuscript now. So I've got my first manuscript out to publishers, and this is my next project. So.
Because honestly, I'm pretty sure we couldn't resist any of them. We took all 3, right?
You did.
Yeah. So keep them coming.
You're the odd publication out though. Lots of people have no problem at all resisting them. So.
I just think they resonate nicely against one another. I really do.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. I think I said Lynn would be next. Lynn Gilbert.
Thank you. This is the poem that appears in the journal. It's called The Icy Neva, and it's a recollection of my encounter with, or failed to encounter, Akhmatova, the Russian poet. The Icy Neva. Leningrad, 1959. She must have been there then, in the granite Venice of the North, in some chill apartment, but at that time I didn't know her work or her appearance. At any moment, while I stared from the tour bus or trudged down the Nevsky Prospect to some bare vault of a state-run department store, transliterating as I went, she might have stepped out onto the pavement bearing a looped string of bagels or a few apples in a knotted twine bag. Her high arched nose still unmistakable, though her face was padded by a post-war diet bereft of almost everything but starch. But I wouldn't have known her. By the time I arrived in England in 1965, I had read Akhmatova, but missed her again by a few months. She had made her last trip abroad away from her icy Neva, into which she wrote she had thrown thousands of clanging bell towers, but remained insomniac. And the next one just came out in the Texas Observer. I live in Texas, and it's something that you may share as if insofar as your Florida residents, because it concerns the Gulf of Mexico. And this is a monologue by the Gulf itself.
Hmm.
And it's written in the old alliterative four-stress line, which was a lot of fun to work with. The Gulf gives fair warning at Galveston Island. You built your beach homes on a slow sinking island that the dune grass abandons, the ocean will overrun. Force 5 hurricanes will howl at the coastline, and the casualty company has canceled your coverage. The seawall the city built a century since against savage surges that had splintered the city won't stop rising seas from circumventing or subsidence beneath from scissoring structures. Already high bay waves wash the war monument where Sam Houston's statue is destined to sink into booming swamp by Buffalo Bayou. You'd best get out now while the getting's good. Count on scared crowds clogging the causeway that leads to dry land with dozens of cars dead, out of gas, far from friend, home, or help, and their desperate drivers facing the drink. And finally, I have one that hasn't been published yet, but it was another fun one to write. It's a sonnet, a kind of complaint. It's called Give It a Rest, okay? In company, I hope to hear a word of sunny scene, great meal, or generous deed, a stroke of luck, or anecdote absurd enough to make me laugh. I do not need recitals of your wrongs or ailments. Please excuse me from environmental doom scenarios. No large-scale remedies lie in my power to effect. Nor have I room to think of other miseries of the world. Everybody sees them on the news, the massacres, the tons of ordnance hurled. On all these, please don't wake me with your views. Fair warning, if I find you can't comply, I'll ghost you. See above for reasons why. Thank you.
I think that should find a home easily. Thank you, Lynn. That was wonderful. Okay, next is George Franklin. George has been in the journal more than once and will be, I'm sure, again. Take it away, George.
Thank you so much, Michael. And
Yes,
thank
sir.
you, Judy. Okay, well, I was going to start off by reading the poem that's in the journal now, Jules de Supervielle's Beret. And I loved the photo that Michael found to put with it. I'm assuming that was your work, Michael. Thank you very much. His family was Basque, so the beret came naturally. The photograph's background, a bridge on the Seine, or the ocean outside the harbor. The heart beats the same everywhere. On the open sea, a sailor's longing gives birth to a child who can neither live nor die. An imagined French town where no one lives. This takes place in the space of a heartbeat. At night, he rolls to his left and feels the heart pump against his arm. This is how life is measured. The drummer inside his chest keeps time and improvises. He has long conversations with God, but God is not forthcoming. Each morning, the newspaper and coffee, hot rolls and marmalade. Each morning, unexpected. His heart had been bad all his life. If he should dive into the waves, they'd carry him back. Montevideo, France, an unidentifiable suburb, sounds of passing cars and buses, a crane at the docks unloading cargo, algebra of wooden crates, blue ink and letters written in the clouds, not in French or Spanish, but a language spoken by birds who nest in the mountains. Sometimes they fly all the way to Paris. And this is a poem from a new book that I have that's going to come out hopefully in about a month or so. It's a chapbook called What the Angel Saw, What the Saint Refused. And these are not conventional, this is not a conventional angel or a conventional saint. The saint is the saint of unbelievers, and he is a saint because he does completely without belief. He tries to live entirely without belief in anything. And the name of this particular poem is "The Saint Sometimes Misses Belief." Although he would be reluctant to admit it, the saint of unbelievers sometimes misses belief. Not for the usual reasons, though. He's not afraid of dying, and he stopped looking for purpose in the world when he was still an adolescent. What the saint regrets are the conversations he might have had, interrogating the right or wrong of his own actions and those of others, how he might have justified living as he does, how he would have responded to the interlocutor who says nothing, but whose silence is both question and answer. As it is, he makes do with the sounds he hears at night in his cabin, the shrieks of owls, the wind cracking a tree limb in winter, the muffled thump of snow sliding off the roof. In the mountains where he lives, there are spots where he can look down on a village or town, not much different from the toy railroads constructed by children. Belief, he thinks, is like these views, full of certainty that the place he observes is what it purports to be. From the top of a mountain, the various pieces fit together so easily. The store across the main street from the train station, the schoolhouse and the church, the brothel and tavern. From the top of the mountain, everything looks symmetrical. From here, it would be easy to imagine the lives of villagers moving like automatons of medieval clocks. At the same time each day, the baker will stand outside the glass door of his shop and stare in at the oven and the brown loaves of hard-crusted bread on the counter. The saint knows that this view from a great height is completely wrong. The baker's wife hides the bruises on her face. The librarian tells him that the baker's children have similar bruises, and they never stop by anymore to turn the pages of a book. The saint knows that pain is never symmetrical, and he refuses to pretend that the pieces fit together. It is no accident, he thinks, and it's only a thought because he's learned to do without an interlocutor, that prophets and philosophers have been so fond of mountaintops. They remind him of the hikers he has seen from time to time. They wear short pants and boots and carry ridiculously large bags on their backs. They climb to the top of this or that peak and then, full of achievement, back down to the village and the train station. Whatever they think they have learned will disappoint them. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Up next will be Don. And after Don, I don't know. I better figure it out. The floor is yours, Don.
All right, thank you, Michael. Thanks to Judy and Lenny as well for putting this together. I'm going to read the 3 poems that are in the May issues. The first is called Boy Jumping Off a Cliff. In the reel you posted on Instagram, a young man in a square-cut swimsuit that's florid as a bouquet of poppies jumps into midnight blue water, churning in the inlet below, not a dive, but a feet-first fall. Perched at the edge of the cliff, he glances toward whoever is filming before he jumps. Freed of the cliff's footing, he plummets, entering the water like a knife into a sheath. He disappears, swallowed in one quick draft. What is it? 15 years, 20, since we said goodbye at Newark Airport that brilliant morning in June? Thank you. And the next one is called Highway at Night. I knew the meaning of the word, hospice, though it sounded more like a country inn where the weary find respite from their trip. I hoped the whispering of the sago palms comforted you, that you saw hibiscus bloom through the haze of the morphine drip. I've tried to understand my inaction, blamed it on bad timing, but what time would have been good, actually? I was like one of those furtive deer darting across a highway at night when your death came bearing down. Thank you. And the final one is called Audrey Hepburn and the Southern Belle Soiree. While I was meditating on the sofa this morning, I felt as though you were sitting next to me, like a transparent version of yourself, legs tucked beneath you, hands resting in your lap like mine. I've been lost in a memory, and you were in it. We were together in the fitting room of the thrift shop on 80th Street and 2nd Avenue. I was trying on a pink cocktail dress for a drag ball, the Miss Dixie pageant and Southern Belle Soiree. We were giggling like schoolgirls. A clerk came over to shoo us out. We stumbled from the dressing room, doubled over, me looking like a poor man's Audrey Hepburn. I wonder if you are still among the living. I haven't heard from you in years. Maybe you've died, and your presence next to me was a message. Maybe you had something to tell me about life and death and what may or may not come after. Or maybe you were simply asking that I not forget. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next up is Joshua.
Hello. Thanks for having me. It's so great to hear everyone. And I'm excited to hear what's up next. I'm not going to read the poems that are on the website because we read them. So go visit the website and hear them there. Or kind of surreal prose poems. So I wanted to read something new in that vein. So this is pretty fresh. It's only been rejected once. It's the Register of Dreams. He records everything: nightmares, daydreams, aspirations. Sometimes his thumbnail gets whiplash from the constant turning of tiny letters. Bushy black brows shelter his slow-moving eyes. He does not judge dreams, but looks past them to the neurons firing. His lips spark as he works. He never sleeps. Sometimes he walks around the block, but must continue his work. So many dreams to register. A boy reaches to open the clouds, nested like Russian dolls. A man in a suit paints tender petals. An old woman's tears tinkle like sleigh bells against the sidewalk. Only the register knows why, but he hasn't the time to tell. He hasn't the heart. He's never been kissed. Once, a young girl dreamed about a man who recorded everyone's dreams. In it, she held his hand, which was warm. He wrote, "I held his hand, which was warm." If he had a wallet, he would keep a picture of her in it, the color sharp and pristine from lack of exposure. And this next one recently appeared in a journal called Syzygy, part of their Slow Orbit series. So if you visit it on the website, there's kind of like an essay that accompanies it to sort of introduce it. But it's about based on a real person that I met who proselytized to me while I was out walking my dog. But I recognized this kind of madness in him and felt a connection to that. So this is "The Prophet Allays All Doubt." Sometimes the sound of gospel hymns precedes him. Sometimes he believes he is Jesus. Sometimes on speakerphone, he tells a man the Christian church is a scam. They don't know a damn thing about love. Sometimes while talking, he stamps at spiders. Sometimes he kisses his grandmother's fuzzy cheek like a good boy, and she says, "You are such a good boy." But sometimes he believes his medication is poison. Sometimes he presses his ear to the sidewalk to hear what the devil is up to, or counts the bricks of a building's facade to determine whether it is blessed or cursed. Sometimes he eats cold, canned soup from the community cabinet and saves the plastic spoon in his pocket. Sometimes he doesn't sleep. Sometimes he falls asleep on a park bench by the river, listening to its whisper. What I have vowed, I will make good. Sometimes, waking up, he recognizes a stranger. Reach out your hand and put it into my side, eyes wide like a child. Thank you.
Amanda, you are next.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Judy. It's great to be here, and everybody's work is so awesome. I'm going to follow the lead of some and maybe read something new. Let's see. That also, thank you for the rejection note. Have not been rejected yet, so they're out there though, so you never know. Okay, so I'll start with the ants and the baby. At the laundromat, there is an ant infestation. The little legged beauty marks are marching toward a large hole in the wall. I start a load of whites, then get in line with the ants. Upon arriving at the hole, I gaze inside where I see a newborn baby covered in stickiness. The ants work hard at cleaning the infant, dropping crumbs and water droplets into its mouth. The child looks well cared for, but I have no children of my own, so I don't know the full extent of rearing a tiny person. A pregnant terminator arrives. The baby has done its job. Everyone must evacuate. I go next door and I buy a pink frosted donut and a bottle of chocolate milk. I watch as they freeze the ants into immobility with ice guns and throw them into large ant farms hoisted onto 18-wheelers. I read a tabloid about the protein-packed insect food of the future until the washer chirps from across the parking lot. The crime scene tape is still whipping in the wind like sweet strands of honey. The ants look dead behind the glass. I'm sure they're just sleeping. Okay, this one is called Ode to the Earthworm I Dissected in 7th grade. You must have been a girl because you wore pink and gave me the benefit of the doubt, even though I harbored a scalpel. Thank you for making me a pacifist and saving the frog that lay with its underbelly exposed after you. You were the first thing I saw that was filled with a poem. The letters spilled out of you like a funeral dirge. There was an entire tiny belief system within you. It was with your friendliness that I began to believe I could be buried. Before this miniature autopsy, to be consumed by you was implausible. Then, while eating my peanut butter and jelly under a weeping willow, I noticed you still with me. On the pulse point of my wrist, you left a fragrance of dill, formaldehyde. I am sorry for my wide eyes at your splayed body, your vulnerable openness. I am still learning the inner workings of my own pinkness. Now, my daughter is walking out the front door at sundown in a rosy dress that catches the clinical porch light. The fabric gleams its blushing thinness. She will dance with a boy for the first time. His black button-down shirt will feel like dry silt, like baby powder. Okay. Michael, do you have time for one more? Yeah, okay. Okay, don't fall in love with the face that you're paid to carry. I was hired to carry a handsome man's face. I was told to walk 75 degrees to the left as if we were hunting. It was like a large ribeye steak, damp with the faint scent of an open wound. I was to keep his eyes facing forward. I held his face with 2 hands like a loaded gun. It paid well enough for me to buy baby dolls that looked exceptionally real. I was warned not to fall in love with the face. It became a comforting appendage, a night phantom that sang dying battery lullabies to me like my father did with his slow Bell's palsy mouth. I was fired for kissing the face in the park last spring. In the report, I admitted to Frenching it deeply with an open mouth. It isn't the same now that I only carry my own face around. In one arm, a frown, and in the other, a newborn without a coup. Thank you, everybody. That was fun.
Thank you all for your wonderful work.